Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the last of our 5 live webcast series on business disruption. This morning's episode is going to be in reputation risk, and we've got a wonderful guest in Pete Chapman here from Enigma, who's going to have a conversation with us about an area that we thought was so important to talk to, but we wanted to cover, as we did in our previous episodes, people risk, financial risk, operational risk, and market failure risk. So Pete's here to talk to us about, well, how do we communicate through this? My name's Steve Wade, I'm the CEO of the Business Centre, and I'll be hosting this with you today. The Business Centre is a 35-year-old not-for-profit helping businesses across New South Wales, and that's part of what we're doing today. But to our guest, Pete Chapman, aka Chappie, loves the comms game because it's where art and creativity meets commerce to drive results. Having worked at some of Australia's most awarded agencies, Pete brings energy, enthusiasm and experience of working on multinational brands to the Enigma team. He believes creativity can exponentially help businesses gain bottom line advantage over their competitors. Before joining Enigma, Pete worked for global agencies JWT and Clemenger BBDO. We'll have some questions, Pete, during the time coming through live, and at points during the presentation we'll interject with some of those questions if the guys let us know that they're coming through. But I guess first of all, the first thing is, Pete, you and I have been talking about this for the last week or so as we prepare for it. Like me and like our team here, I guess at Enigma, you guys have been working this through. So how have you responded as a business? What sort of things have you had to face and do and put in place?
Thanks, Steve. Well, thanks for having me.
No, you're welcome.
It's been a real journey, a real time of change. I think across all businesses, but certainly for ours as well.
Yeah.
I mean, agencies and consultancies are in a unique position compared to most businesses where we spend probably more time in other boardrooms across categories than most people do.
Yeah.
So we've had the opportunity to see how many categories and clients are dealing with the situation, and we most certainly have had to deal with it ourselves. So the first thing we've done is adapt to the requirements from a safety perspective for our staff.
Yeah.
And again, we're lucky to be in a business where we are by the very nature of what we do, fairly light on our feet.
Yeah.
We've got the majority of the business working from home, as you would expect. We've got offices in Newcastle and in Sydney, and we found that our requirement to make sure that both of those offices felt safe meant that we needed to think about them slightly separately because the markets are different, and the point in time at which things were very real in Sydney, for instance, were slightly different in Newcastle.
Of course, yeah.
And we've got the leadership team spread across both offices, so it was really important to talk a lot as a business to make sure that we here in Newcastle understood what was happening in Sydney, for instance, and vice versa.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you'd expect, we've got a whole heap of people working from home. There's been some really interesting shifts in the way that we've been doing business throughout this period.
Tell us more about that.
Well, we shot a TV commercial on Monday.
Wow, how did you do that?
We just had to adhere to the health advice, obviously, and similar to today, how we're doing it today.
Yeah, COVID spacing.
Yeah, make sure that we're much further away from each other than we would typically be comfortable in being. We worked with a much smaller crew. We had people working on set virtually. So, for instance, we didn't have the creative team on set, which we usually would, but they were very connected to what was happening on set. So we had a very light crew. Everybody, we were really, it's important, I think, broadly in this circumstance to be really well planned, but we're really well planned in what everyone was doing, when they were doing it, and how long we needed to be there for instance. And got the job done. So, I mean, that in itself was a really interesting experiment to see how differently something that we do week in and week out could be done and adapted to. We're holding focus groups via different digital conferencing platforms. We're doing all sorts of things. We're seeing the inside of clients' houses more than we've seen ever.
all the backgrounds, the different backgrounds.
Meeting more clients' children than we've ever done before. But I mean, it's kind of, broadly speaking, what have we done in the business to adapt? Well, we've embraced technology, and I think that one of the best things that will come out of this situation is the way it has forced the world, but certainly Australia, to embrace the technology that's readily available.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't seen any of the major tech stacks need to do anything wholesale to be able to take the entire country to work off-site. Yeah. Some of them have had moments where they've gone down. Of course they have, because you know there's been huge loads, untested loads on each of those systems. Yeah. But to think that there is a plethora of options out there, free options, for people to be able to work from home and stay completely connected, suggests that we were behind in the way we were using that technology before. Well,
we might talk to that, because some of the material you sent me to read, which was fantastic, it's been really interesting how brands internationally have responded to this, and the conversation we had about sometimes the difficulty of government to respond because of the construct which they operate within, but how brands have responded to this. And you and I were talking also about, for many small businesses, it's important, and we're conscious of this ourselves, that we're not being exploitative, and we don't want to be seen to be that. And all of us have seen the tenfold increase in social media traffic. But before we get on to my first question, in essence, with you about some of the challenges facing SMEs, what have some brands done internationally that you can share with us?
I mean, it's been really interesting. I believe that that actually the world needs brands more than it ever has at times like these. Yep. I think that brands can play a huge role in stepping up for people, because ultimately there are 3 or 4 places that information or content is coming from at the moment. Yep. There's government, and government have a very specific and really important role to play, but their role is to lead us through this. It is a very pragmatic and serious role to play. There's the media. The media have an important role to play in relation to information, particularly news media. Yep. And it is in their interest to play that card in a certain way. I don't think that there's anything happening at the moment that isn't real, and it is being reported on, in my opinion, really appropriately. Yeah. But you can be forgiven for wanting to turn the news off every second night at the moment. Yeah. And so the role of brands, like the role of media entertainment, are filling a real gap for people. And I think that the more human a brand can be at the moment, the better role that it's playing. And we're seeing that play out with different brands. Brands that are big, safe, caring brands are putting out amazing communications, making people feel looked after and feel like that that those brands are thinking about the situation.
Like Zoom, Audible.
So they're doing it in a way that's super useful. So, and I think that's the most important thing, is think about how you can be useful to people, and then instead of saying something about your business, do something. And it's that doing something that's really sticking with people.
And this applies for small businesses as well.
And there's examples locally. So, there's a connected example where Louis Vuitton have transformed all of their perfume houses into sanitizer factories. Now, it's probably the ugliest product that Louis Vuitton have put out in the last 100 years, right? But it's probably done more for their brand than anything else in the last 100 years. So there's an example of that locally where Herb Distillery make gin. Now, they have all the facility to make hand sanitizer, and similarly, they've probably done more for their brand and the awareness of the very fact that they exist, and that they're here doing something useful.
And like we were talking about it wasn't a purposeful act to move outside of their lane. It was actually just using the steel, the technology and the resources that they had to do something useful. And they didn't make a lot of noise about it initially. I think the media found them. They just thought, well, we can't open now and sell our gin in a retail environment. Let's do something.
Totally. They are, if you strip it back, in the business of making liquid people want. Now, the liquid people wanted a month ago was gin. I'm sure they still want gin. But the liquid people need right now is hand sanitizer, so they have the right to do that. And I think that is important. You talked about it before, and I thought you were really spot on about saying that you need to work out what the guardrails of your brand is and what it is that you're in the business of doing, and make sure that that usefulness that you create is within there. Because I think that what we're all petrified of doing, and what is potentially the worst thing we can do, is be seen as opportunistic in this time.
So coming back to small businesses then, and looking at ways in which they can consider their brand beyond the next 8 weeks. What sort of insights are you guys looking to help your clients with regard to that? You know, that now, that what happens in the next 8 weeks, and then what does it look like after?
Yeah, so I think you've hit the nail on the head. There are multiple timelines in this thing. Brands need to think about now, and what we're seeing is that they're being largely led by their business or operational needs in their behaviour right now. But I think the most important thing, and the thing the best brands are doing, is separating their brand and their business operations. So there are things that the business needs to do operationally to stay in business, to look after its people, to keep jobs, to do the right things by its customers and its shareholders. But it's important where possible to separate the brand from that, to make sure that ideally your brand's on a path, and to continue that path regardless of the fact that we need to move and shape and evolve things in the background to stay in business. Now, some of those things that we move and shape and evolve to can impact the brand in a really positive way. But it's important, I think, particularly for small businesses, to remember that everything they're doing at an operational level can have a rub off on their brand. So think about the way that they're doing that, and particularly the way they're communicating it. And make sure that it's a way they'd want their brand to be represented. Yeah,
I saw a great tweet the other night that I shared about people are going to remember how businesses behaved at this time.
Totally.
So that legacy of, were you a good actor? Did you stay in your lane and just do what you do well?
Yeah, look, absolutely. I think that values for a business and a brand have never been more important than they are today. We work with heaps of small businesses in helping them define their brand values and their mission and their purpose. And it has been increasingly over the last sort of 5 years something that everybody is recognising as a really important thing. And I think right now today is the ultimate test of why that's so important. So I think the one piece of advice I would give business owners and operators is to take a really good look at their values, make sure they are actually their values, and stick to them like glue.
Now, one of the things we also spoke about, because I think when I first spoke to you about doing this one, I was, like a lot of people, it was almost overwhelming. You know, are we ever going to get out of this thing? But then you sent me some really good reading that we have been here before. Obviously, this is unprecedented and a vast matter, but we have been here before. And you sent me some really good stuff on SARS and how in the Chinese market and the consumer behaviour place that there's so many changes happened as a result of that. You know, an increase in people being at home and looking for digital entertainment options, home shopping. And then from that era was born Alibaba. And then post that event, Cathay Pacific, who tanked in regards to their share price, after this quickly resolved itself, they were positioned really well to regain their share value. So it's an opportunity, although we can't be trite about it, it is an opportunity to reposition, to recalibrate, isn't it?
Totally. And I think the world is looking for businesses to see the opportunity to stay in business. It is not going to suit anybody or serve anybody for businesses to put their head in the sand and give up. I think that there are absolutely businesses that aren't in a position to necessarily trade through this. But it is important to remember that this is a moment in time. Now, we don't know when it's going to end, but ultimately the sun will rise tomorrow. It'll rise on a really different world, and that will continue to change. But people are going to continue to buy. They'll buy really differently, and they'll need different things. The trick is in adapting to that. And actually, I think from a small business perspective, that's the massive opportunity, because what we know of big business is that they are by their very nature slow. Now, they're not all slow. James Dyson created a ventilator in 10 days, and again, an incredible example of the work a brand can do for itself by adapting to a situation and being useful. But small businesses have the absolute ability to be agile. What I think is the most important thing for small business operators is to say, okay, what's the situation right now? What does the world need from me? Like what it needed when I started this business, and how do I create an operation that serves that? So, you know, for instance, when we facilitate brand planning workshops, one of the things that we do is we say, let's pretend that a meteorite has just hit your business and it's wiped it out. It hasn't wiped any of the people out, and it hasn't wiped you out financially, but it's wiped out everything that you do. What does the business look like if you created it for 2025? And what that question does is have people think about not we do it because we've always done it, or this is what we are in the business of doing right now. It has them think about, well, what are our customers really asking for? Where's technology or the world or culture taking us, and where do we think we could be useful? You could ask that exact same question now in relation to COVID-19 and say, okay, in the face of COVID-19, let's assume that everything we're doing is up for grabs. What does it look like when we come out of this? And I think that the businesses and operators that are in the situation to be able to do it should be spending as much of this time as possible thinking about those kind of questions and using any of the workforce that have time on their hands to do it to implement sort of ideas
so it's
like that.
We were talking about earlier, the previous episode that we had with Mitch spoke about recalibrating the financials of your business for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. We need to be doing exactly the same for our brand, our reputation, and how we communicate what we're doing, shouldn't we?
Totally.
I think they're coming together, aren't they?
Totally. Okay. I mean, I think, as I said before, we don't know what the timeline is on this thing, but what we do know, or what we believe, is that there will be a really significant pent-up demand for most services. Anything that is experiencing a real lag now, those consumers aren't going away. People are holding on stuff, by and large. And what that means is, at a point in time, probably all at the same time, they're going to want those things. So, but those things might be different to what they looked like last week. So the businesses that can adapt to what those things will look like in the future and be there ready to serve it and promote it at the time at which it turns on will win. So this sort of leads into the next area of discussion, which we're going to look at what can businesses do in relation to marketing, and you've started there to touch on some things like, you know, get your staff capacity right, spend time on stuff that you're going to be too busy to when the wave hits. But then you start talking about things like collecting testimonials and working on product innovation and sorting out your website. What sort of things have you done there with businesses there? The one overarching theme in business is that the people that have the skills to do all of the things that the business really needs are too busy to often execute most of them. So I think if there's an opportunity here, because the accelerator has come off slightly in relation to business as usual, there's an opportunity to spend the time on all of those things that are at the back of the to-do list. You know, it is the old sort of adage of, you know, draw up a circle, work out what's important and urgent, not important and urgent, important but not urgent, not important and not urgent. Obviously get rid of everything that's not important and not urgent. The not important and urgent probably isn't there right now, because if it's urgent, it's probably important, it's probably business critical. But all of the things that are important but not urgent are the things that we should be thinking about. You know, if you've got raving fans from the business, articulate that in some way and get it up there so that people can see it. If you haven't had a chance to write your capability statement or to think about what the website looks like or articulate how your different products work together so that when you're in your next sales pitch, you can put that together in a meaningful way for customers, do that now. You know, preempt what 3 or 4 personas of customer are going to look like and what they might need, and build those sales decks now so that, as I said before, when the tap turns on, you're ready to go.
I think I was sharing with you something I saw posted on LinkedIn by a guy called Isaac Waddick, who put a multiple choice question up, and the question had 3 options to answer, and it was who led the digital transformation of your company? Answer A, CEO. answer B, CTO, or answer C, COVID-19. Circle the correct answer, and he'd put a red circle around COVID-19.
Yeah.
So for us, that's certainly been the case, because we believed that we needed to communicate in this era a little bit more effectively through digital means, through our website. But we realised quite quickly when we needed to respond that something we probably should have done about plugins to our website hadn't been done, but within a week we had it done.
Yeah.
The motivation was there to be able to be a person, an organisation that could communicate that way.
Yeah.
So again, have you found this as well, that you're finding clients that are now maybe hearing you better about some of the advice you were giving?
Yeah, definitely, and I think we're in the same boat. There's examples throughout our business where it's really helped us turbocharge some of the plans that we had.
Yeah.
Necessity is the driver of change so often. That's been the case since the Dark Ages.
Yeah.
We see time and time again in history that real step change happens because there's a need for it.
Yeah.
And there's no difference here. I think that the most visible and obvious example will be technology and the use of technology. Yeah. But other things will change. The way that commercial developers think about the office space that people need is going to change. I can't think of a blue chip company that's going to want 2,000 square metres in Martin Place after realising that actually they can have 200 square metres in Martin Place.
And the business still functions.
And build 4 or 5 satellite functions in Western Sydney, where all their staff are anyway, for them to be able to be closer to home and actually be more integrated in their life. So I think it's going to change everything. Yeah. And I think there are things that we're going to change anyway. Yeah. They'll just change quicker. I mean, our big department stores are an example of a category that is going to change now in a way that would have otherwise taken 10 years.
Yeah. So you sort of led on to something there that we also want to talk about. So at this point, it's protecting your brand and your business, but doing it in a way that you keep your customers. You keep people moving along. So looking at everything going forward, it's presenting an opportunity, isn't it, going forward? So some of the things also that you sent me, which might be worth having a bit of a look at, was a change from to. So change from competitors to partnerships. We're certainly looking at that, and you might have some insights into that. Moving away, which you kind of touched on, from traditional products to relevant products. Yep. And purpose, not in words, but purpose in actions. What did you do? So what thoughts have you got there around that?
Yeah, like I think ultimately a brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. That's what the CEO of Amazon says, and I think that's pretty spot on.
Yeah.
But what people are looking at and what will inform what they say about you when you're not in the room is the way that you act right now. Yeah. Now, some of that can be articulated in advertising, and most of it needs to be ultimately, because that's the way you get the word out there about your actions. Yeah. But people need to bring their purpose to life through actions at the moment. Yeah. Bunnings, I think, is a really great example of a business that is being useful. Now, Bunnings is not a business that needs to give us a pat on the back or a "we'll be right, guys." They need to be functionally useful. Yeah. And they've seen opportunity in that, but opportunity in a way that makes people's lives more fulfilled at the moment. Yeah. They have big hardware stores. People don't want to be in big hardware stores full of other people at the moment, so they've quickly deployed the ability to deliver. Okay. Now, that is a simple thing. It's a big thing for an organisation of that size to be able to roll out, but they've done it quickly, and their advertising is simply about the fact that you can get everything that you used to get from Bunnings delivered within 3 or 5 days. Now, the entire nation is at home, albeit most of them working, but the entire nation is at home. Yeah. What people need when they're all at home at the same time is things to do that help them stay sane, happy, connected. Yeah. And so they've recognised that it's probably the best opportunity for business, for people to take on home projects. Yeah. They don't want to go to the store, they'll deliver it. Yeah. The work that Bunnings has done in the last 20 years on its brand means they don't need to tell people what they do. No. Everybody knows. Yeah. You put an ad out there that simply says Bunnings is delivering,
Yeah.
and everything else is done.
Yeah.
So for the brands that have been really good in articulating what they give to the world, they can now pivot and articulate how they're going to be useful right now.
Yeah.
And that'll do more for their brand than anything else could.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, some of the other companies, large companies that we spoke about that I thought was quite. My favourite was the way that Time Out changed their name to Time In just for this period. So I thought that was really cute. Okay, we've got a couple of questions. Dave's asked about businesses like accounting. They are getting slammed. How can accountants that are busy doing the work for customers show their value in marketing? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. I think a lot of our attention has gone to businesses that aren't that busy and how they can keep their brands.
Yeah.
And even this discussion today talks to this idea of how do we keep our brand really valuable when the business isn't that busy.
Yeah.
Dave's right. There's businesses out there that are really busy at the moment.
Yes, that's what we've heard. Yeah.
So I think that the best thing that you can do when you're busy is to continue to live up to the promises that you're giving your customers.
Yeah.
If in Dave's circumstances, and to be honest, we are lucky as well to be professional services, regardless, have never been more important to their clients than right now. Yeah. So the advice that I'd give Dave and any professional services outfit is to stay close to your clients, even though physically you've never been further away. Yeah. And give them the advice and the work that they need.
I think it's, reading through some of the material that you sent as well, I think it's a time historically where you're going to get strange bedfellows, you're going to get interesting and unusual partnerships and collaborations as a result of how do we do this? I can't do this, or we can't do this on our own. We need to work with people and we need to kind of surrender protecting a market or a customer base and say, we've got people here that need what we've got and we can't do it by ourselves anymore.
100%. And I think, there's examples the world over on that, but now is not the time to knife the competition. That's what I would say. Australians don't like that. And if there is a gesture above all that will be really well respected, it's this idea of companies and brands giving up what is just good for them for what is good for all of us. Now, if there's accounting firms over there that are bursting at the seams, who know other accounting firms that aren't, how can you create an appropriate partnership or at least referral system that means that the right people are going to the right places?
Indeed.
If you're an accounting firm that does an incredibly good job of tax and of compliance broadly, but a client needs business advice, stay busy doing the tax. Work with somebody who's really great at business advice to help those clients with that. And ultimately what you'll see is when they get busy with that, they're going to give you some tax work. Now that's just, of course, an example.
Okay. We've got another one here, which I think is a really, really interesting one, given our whole series started with people risk. So Geraldine's asked, how do I protect my brand if I have to lay off most of my staff, which is a pain point for, and then I know a lot of small businesses, they hold dearly. It's almost a family to. So how do you maintain your reputation through that?
That's a really, really good question. I'm glad it came up actually, because it's one we meant to touch on through the discussion. So I think there's probably three parts to that. One, COVID-19 is not the fault of business owners. And I think that inherently business owners and operators feel a sense of guilt and a sense of responsibility to their staff. Now, they should feel a duty of care to their staff, there's no question about that. But this is a situation that requires responding to. And a business and a brand is no good to anybody if it's not here in 4 months' time. So what I would say is that people need to, as difficult as it is, take a long-term view to jobs and to protecting the people and the family. And that's how a lot of businesses think about it, the family that they employ. And what we've found across the board with clients and everybody that we're talking to is that people are being incredibly pragmatic about this. Some companies have to stand everybody down, and that is an unfortunate circumstance, and I think the government is doing as much as it can to create a mechanism to protect people that are at the most vulnerable. They've also created what I think is a pretty incredible scheme in JobKeeper. I think that is helping a lot of companies actually not make decisions that they were really dreading making.
Yeah.
But I think if you are laying people off, take a long-term view, protect the business and the brand, because as I said, it is no good to anyone if the only place it sits in 4 months' time is the history books.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would say is that, as with a lot of these things, it's about the way that you do it.
Yeah. Okay.
If you're going to lay people off, lay them off in a way and talk to them about it in a way that you would like it done to you.
Yeah.
Do it in a way that is in line with the values of your company. And write everything and speak about everything, A, in the way that you'd like to be spoken to or written to, but B, in a way that you would expect them to share it with anybody.
Yeah.
The world is frightened right now, and business owners aren't immune to that. I think there's a responsibility on business to be confident and positive, and I think that'll help us push through this quicker.
Yep.
But I think that's the biggest thing is deal with it in a human way, but try and be as positive and as confident as possible.
Yeah, there's a few more questions coming through here. They're really good. I'm trying to pick one that is in alignment with what we're talking about now. We'll have time at the end to keep working on them. This one's pretty good. Sandra asked, I'm not a digital person. What are your thoughts on using LinkedIn to connect my B2B customers?
I mean, look, without knowing anything about Sandra's business, it's complex, but LinkedIn is certainly a really good platform, I think, for business to business. The biggest piece of advice I'd give to business customers is that we get, broadly speaking in marketing, we get really distracted by the idea about talking about business benefit in business to business. But the truth is, you're dealing with humans. So I would talk about the emotional and the human benefit of what it is you're providing above all else. And you've got to work out what platform's best at the moment.
Just some of the facts and figures you gave me that I thought was interesting in that regard was brand posts COVID-19 almost doubled the week after March 12 compared to the week before.
Yeah.
And then there was another interesting one. Within that 48-hour period, 30 million emotional posts associated with that, but 13 million brand posts within the same time period. And this sort of comes back to this question here from Alex, how do I engage with my customers on social media without coming across as corny? So that's that exploitative, stay in your lane, don't be putting stuff out there that's really not so far away from who you are or what your values are.
Yeah. I think that comes down to not just getting on the bandwagon of talking about the crisis. I mean, I don't know anybody who needs another piece of information about coronavirus.
I know.
Coronavirus has created the context in which we are in. We are in a context where people are acting and performing and being in a certain way. It doesn't mean our communications needs to talk about that content.
No.
We still need to deliver the content that is useful to our customers, understanding the context. So no good talking to them about a fabulous new this or that you've got for to have in the office. Because no one's in the office, for example.
No.
But it doesn't as well mean that we need to be talking about COVID-19.
Yeah. Okay, there's a good one here. You may know a lot about this than I would, but Ezra asks, what are customers engaging at the moment? What are the latest stats, if you know, Pete, got a sense of it, of this in Australia? Where are people operating? Where are they engaging?
So what we find in times like this is that people go back to what they know largely. So the media channels that are the most active, no doubt, is digital, but is also the likes of TV and radio and even the newspaper. The TV and the radio is on in more Australian households than it ever has been in the last rememberable past. So I think those channels are busy. As far as what people are doing, there is an incredible simplicity that has been cast upon us as a nation. The busyness has been stripped out of people's lives, and people are dealing with that in one of two ways. It's driving some people crazy, I'm sure. It's really complex for other people who feel lonely or isolated. And it's hugely refreshing for others. There is a huge portion of the market that has felt for a long time too busy. and is taking the opportunity to be forced to slow down, to reconnect.
It's a phenomena, isn't it?
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I would relate to that personally.
Yep.
We have 3 little kids. We are incredibly busy. My wife's busy. I'm busy. We're busy as a family.
Yep.
And there is often not time to stop and smell the flowers.
Yeah.
And I would say if there's a silver lining in this thing, it is that people are within the same household having the opportunity to spend more time together.
I think even for us as a work team, when we kind of moved across to digital platforms, we were using Asana, we're using Slack, we're using Outlook. We've got our mobile phones, we've got LinkedIn, we've got Facebook, we've got Instagram. But as a work group, I think we all, after about 4 or 5 days, all reflected with each other and said, we have to stop.
Yeah.
We have to. It made us stop something perhaps that we would not have done because of the forced connectivity that we said we need to. For Slack, for example, I think we've all pretty much adhered to it, where we stop at 5. No more Slack channels. No more, you know, and I think all of us have been respecting that. So it is a shift, isn't it? We've got a few minutes left, and I want to get to your 5 top tips.
Oh yes.
And then to conclude, you sent us a really beautiful definition of a Chinese word, which I want to end on, and we'll come back to that about crisis. But what are your 5 top tips that we can close on in regards to the live cast now?
Okay, cool. So I've written them down so I don't forget them.
Yeah,
number 1, stick to your values.
Yeah.
Stick to them like glue. Do things the way that that you'd like them done to you, and that you think as a business you would ultimately do them, or a brand.
Yep.
Separate the operation or the operational needs of right now and your brand. Yep. Try and continue your brand on the path that is right for it, whilst doing what's needed in the business to stay healthy. Number 3, take a long-term view to keeping jobs. There is business owners will serve nobody by going out of business trying to protect people. You will do more for your family of employees long-term by keeping the business healthy. I truly believe that. Yeah. Be positive and look for the opportunity. Yeah. And that's what the world needs from us right now. Yeah. Is a optimism, laced of course with pragmatism, that sees that this is a moment in time. Yeah. Yeah. And above all, look to be useful above everything, and avoid being opportunistic. If you can fill a use in the lives of your customers, the revenue and the profit will come. Think not about what you can make money out of right now, but what problem you can solve. I mean, that's true of business broadly. That's what we should all be doing. But it's more important now than ever.
Now, you sent me a great report, and I'll talk to you more about it, whether we've got some ability to share some of that report, because I think it's gold. And one of the slides that I sat on was in regards to the Chinese word for crisis, which carries 2 elements: danger and opportunity. No matter the difficulty of the circumstances, no matter how dangerous the situation, at the heart of each crisis lies a tremendous opportunity. And the Chinese word for that, which I'm going to attempt, is wei ji. So interesting insight, isn't it? That we're really conscious about providing practical information at the Business Centre. We've had great input from people such as yourselves who've donated that time. But at the same time, we wanted to conclude this first series on reputation and brand, because there is an after, and I think it's important to, as we move through the different phases of this, that we do have a sense of the after and what's next. Yeah.
Look, I agree. I mean, I think that is so interesting. That the Chinese word is made up of those 2 parts, in danger and opportunity. And history can be a fantastic settler in times like this. Across the entire world, there's no statues of people cast in iron for doing a reasonable job when times were good. This is the time to step up and to lead, and for us to get through it and get better at it.
All right, Pete, all the best to you and the team in Enigma, all the best to you and your family, and we look forward to keep collaborating with you, as you've always done with the Business Centre. So thank you very much for your time. It's very kind of you, and we really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure.
Okay, we're time to wrap up this last cast with Pete. If you want to contact Pete, please get in touch with us and we'll forward on your details. If you want to get some support from the Business Centre, we keep doing what we're doing. We get support from the state and the federal government, and through the state government we've got a program called Business Connect, which allows us, the government has said we can open that up now. There's no co-payments. It's completely subsidised. We've got a great team of advisors that understand and know business. It's what they do, and they're here to listen, and that's kind of what we all need to do to start with before we act. We're going to take a bit of a breather next week, but we're coming back on board on the 16th of April with a webcast focused strongly around NDIS and allied health sector, and how can we help that part of the business community. All our episodes are already up now on our YouTube channel. This one will be up soon. I want to thank the guys from Fortronic. They've been amazing, Jono and Tom, in adapting their business and helping us so quickly be able to get this information out to our community. They've been great AV partners. If you want to keep working with them, like all events companies, they've struggled through this, and we'd like to support them through the use of this site. If you're interested in doing webcasts, then get in touch with us here and we'll get you together with the guys. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to our team, and have a good day. Goodbye.